We've accessed the full order of the Hijab judgment. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Hijab judgment with me first on Republic TV. Republic has accessed the entire Hijab judgment and I'm going to read out from it. I'm going to scroll down way below it. It goes on to detail the entire case. And Justice Hemant Gupta, in fact, right on top of this judgment, goes on to detail. Now, this is a judgment as delivered by the Supreme Court. And the judges in the Supreme Court, Justice Hemant Gupta says the challenge in the present appeals is to an order passed by the full bench of the Karnataka High Court dismissing the challenge to the government order dated 5th of February, 2nd of May, I think that is, 2nd of May 2022. And such a government order directed the government schools in Karnataka to abide by the prescribed uniform. Private schools were directed to mandate a uniform as decided by the Board of Management. He goes on to preface it. Republic TV, the first channel, by the way, the first channel to access the full judgment that was delivered by the Supreme Court. He goes on to talk about, before adverting to the submissions made by the councils on both sides, it is imperative to give a background of the ethos and principles of secularism. So Justice Hemant Gupta goes into great detail about the ethos and principles of secularism adopted in the Constitution of India. He says, though the term secular has a wide amplitude and has been understood differently in different parts of the world, it is important to comprehend the same in context of the Indian Constitution. He also says, the word secular is now part of the preamble of the Constitution. What is meant by secular needs to be discussed first. That's a big one. He says, the word secular is now part of the preamble of the Constitution. What is meant by secular needs to be discussed first. A big observation being made. He also says the word secular was inserted in the preamble of the Constitution. It is commonly understood in contradistinction to the term religious. The political philosophy of a secular government has been developed in the West in the historical context of the preeminence of the established church, exercise of power, etc. He says the idea of secularism may have been borrowed in the Indian Constitution from the West. However, it's adopted its own brand based on its particular history and exigencies, which are far distinct in many ways from secularism as defined. And he also goes on to talk about the use of the word Patni Nirpeksh in the Constitution brings out difference in the terms Dharma Nirpeksh and Patni Nirpeksh. Panth or sect symbolizes devotion towards any specific belief, way of worship or form of God. But Dharma symbolizes absolute and eternal values, goes on to detail, and then he goes on to refer to a few judgments. And this is the whole judgment as delivered by the Supreme Court two-judge bench. He refers to the case of Nanda Bharati versus State of Kerala case. Secular character of the state was reiterated in a later Constitution bench judgment, reported as Srimati Indira Nehru Gandhi versus Sri Raj Narayan. Gets into great detail about precedents. The word secular, after being added in the preamble, was also considered by a three-judge bench judgment of this court, reported as Ziauddin Burhanuddin Bukhari versus Brij Mohan Ramdas Mehra. I'm going part by part. I'll go to the specific pages. But this is Justice Hemant Gupta laying out, and he goes on to cite another case talking about secularism. He says the term secular was also considered by a 9-judges bench of this court, reported as S.R. Bommai and others versus Union of India and others. Talks about secularism, what the term secular means. Talks about how in the same year a judgment reported as Santosh Kumar and the precedences go on and on. He cites several precedents and then he says, though the concept of secularism emerged in the West, it's taken a different color over a period of time. He says, in a democratic country like India, consisting of multiple religions, regions, faith, languages, food and clothing, concept of secularism is to be understood differently. He says secularism as adopted under our Constitution is that religion cannot be intertwined with any of the secular activities of the state. Any encroachment of religion in the secular activities is not permissible. Secularism thus means treating all religions equally, respecting all religions and protecting practices of all religions. And he goes on to talk about secularism. And the most important aspect of this judgment is that Justice Hemant Gupta talks about the background of this case, laying out the full background. He says, challenge in the present appeals is to the government order, and then he goes on to cite the preamble. And then I'm going to scroll down. I will scroll down to page 133. Just bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to just scroll down to page 133. Okay, here it is. Page 132, and this is page 133. And he says, as discussed above, secularism is applicable to all citizens. Therefore, permitting one religious community to wear their religious symbols would be antithesis to secularism. He says, thus, the government order cannot be said to be against the ethic of secularism or to the objective of the Karnataka Education Act. In view of the discussions above, I dismiss all appeals and the writ petitions, though on different grounds than what prevailed before the High Court. No cause. That was the order delivered. I'm just going to come and I'm just about going to highlight that. I'm going to highlight this portion. This is the verdict. This is what the judge has said. Justice Hemant Gupta laying it out. I'll just snip it once again. Just bear with me. Here it is. So here it is. He says, as discussed above, secularism is applicable to all citizens. Therefore, permitting one religious community to wear their religious symbols would be antithesis to secularism.